We know times are challenging, but this is the team that is going to be able to continue the hard work, rolling up their sleeves and delivering for Canadians from coast to coast to coast as we build a brighter and ambitious future.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau shuffled his cabinet. No, that's not really the interesting story. What was intriguing was all of the events that led up to the shuffle. A lot of resignations, a lot of firings, a lot of MPs saying, we're not sticking around. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me is Brian Lilley. So before we get to who's in, who's out, who's new faces, old faces, same jobs, Brian, it was almost like every single hour leading up to the shuffle, someone was resigning, someone was out, and these were, big names, faces that have been around the Liberal caucus for a long time.
Yeah, and constantly refreshing the Twitter feed to see who had most recently posted their video or their statement to say, yep, they've thrown me overboard. It started with Carolyn Bennett on Monday. It continued with Omar Alghabra, the transportation minister. He's the odd one out because the other three that said that they were all resigning, they were all women of 69, 70, 72 years old. Look, living a cabinet life is difficult for anyone of any age. The hours, the travel, the exhaustion. I can't imagine doing it at 72 and then having to say to the PM, yeah, I'll commit to another 6 years of this. So, Helena Jasic, Carolyn Bennett, Joyce Murray, and Omar Alghabra all said, I'm out. But we also heard that David Lametti was being fired, that Marco Mendicino was being fired. And you're looking and saying, wow, this is a bit of a bloodbath. In the end, though, most of the names and faces around that cabinet table are the same, including the people in key positions. And that matters, Adrienne, because you think of a movie, who do you care about? You care about the stars. The supporting actors are interesting, but you care about the stars. The stars continue to be Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland. Or you want to put it in football terms and sport terms, well, you care about the quarterback and the star receiver or the running back. Yeah. They remain the same. We've changed some players on the offensive line. We've changed some players in the backfield that you're not going to notice, but the stars remain the same.
And that's really what's at the core of all of this is you can shuffle as many of the chairs as you want. You can put different faces, different names on the multitude of cabinet positions that the Trudeau Liberals have. But ultimately, at the core of what we're dealing with when it comes to this government, Brian, it remains the same. And they are out of ideas, have been around for a very long time. And it would appear that Canadians in general are getting a little sick and tired of them as well. So even though most Canadians couldn't name likely a single cabinet minister in the Trudeau government, these individuals have very consequential jobs that affect our daily lives. So this attempt to say that they're going to be focusing and honing in on the economy, I mean, that's a big question mark, isn't it? Is it not?
So let me point out that right after the PM's news conference at Rita Hall with all his cabinet ministers standing behind them, they brought out the new economic front bench. Well, the new economic front bench was Chrystia Freeland as finance minister, Francois-Philippe Champagne as industry minister. Those two remain the same, but they had added Anita Anand. Well, okay, she moved from defense minister to being Treasury Board president. Outside of political geeks, who knows what the Treasury Board does? It's an incredibly important department. It is fundamental to how government operates. Most people, even many inside government, can't tell you what Treasury Board is or does. So the idea that this is a new economic face doesn't wash. They're all three faces that have been around the government a long time and saying, okay, here's our new economic front bench, someone in it, Treasury Board. Canadians aren't going to care. You look at our, issues around keeping Canadians safe. Well, Bill Blair, the guy who couldn't read the memo on Chinese interference with Michael Chong and other Canadian MPs, he couldn't read the memo, didn't get it, can't work his email. He's now in charge of defense.
Yeah,
that's not good. The guy who took over for Bill Blair at emergency preparedness, it's Harjit Sajjan. He was previously defense minister, got shuffled to CETA in charge of overseas development. He was supposed to be partially in charge of the evacuation of Afghanistan. What did he say when he was asked about it at committee? Oh, well, I wasn't reading my emails at the time. Great. So a lot of our national security is now in the hands of two guys who don't read emails unless somebody comes up and says, hey, boss, read this now, or let me read this to you. That's not good. So, the Abacus poll that we saw that came out the morning of the cabinet shuffle, showing a 10-point lead for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, 38% for the Conservatives, 28% for the Liberals. The Conservatives leading in Ontario and British Columbia, virtually tied in Atlantic Canada, leading among women, but by only a few points, but significant, leading by a wide margin among union members. This is why we had the cabinet shuffle, and this is why the Trudeau Liberals are worried. Canadians are growing tired of Trudeau and the supporting cast of characters that they may not be able to name, but they know aren't quite doing the job.
Well, we all know one thing with just some of the names that you just mentioned. We certainly know that Liberals fail upwards. And even though Bill Blair, former Toronto police chief, MP out in the Scarborough area, has been in cabinet pretty much since he's been elected, can't read a memo, doesn't want to read a memo. I see nothing, I hear nothing, I say nothing. Harjit Sajjan, former defense minister, again, failed in that capacity. No suggestion whatsoever that in their new roles they will do any much better, frankly. But let's talk about another failed cabinet minister that is out altogether, and that, of course, is Marco Mendicino. And he, our readers will remember him from, of course, the ongoing Paul Bernardo saga that just unfolded over the course of the last month, where, again, he didn't know that Bernardo was being moved to medium security. He didn't know that this was happening.
Who would know to read the memo that was sent out on that? No one came and read the memo to him, Adrienne. How could he know that he should read it?
It's crazy to think that it took this long for all of this to be dealt with. But that all said, Brian, ultimately, when all is said and done, very little changes, right? It can be, they'll have an exciting time today. They'll have a little party, Rideau Hall, new cabinet ministers. But the core of this government, the philosophy of this government, the spending of this government, none of that changes.
No, none of that changes. But if you want a signal that this cabinet shuffle is about protecting those who are vulnerable, trying to ensure that maybe you give people a bit more profile so that they win in the next election, let me read off something. You heard that there were 7 new ministers. I'm just going to scroll down a bit in my notes and read this off. So we've got Gary Andesanji. He's from Scarborough. Scarborough Rouge River, I believe. He is someone who could lose to the Conservatives in the next election. He got promoted to cabinet. Terry Beach from Burnaby. He could lose to the NDP. He got promoted to cabinet. Soraya Martinez-Ferrada, she's a Quebec MP in a swing riding that's gone Bloc and NDP before her. She got promoted to cabinet. Yarrick Sachs, North Toronto riding. It is a swing riding as well, held by the PCs provincially, held by the NDP in the past. She got promoted to cabinet. Jenna Suds in Canada Carleton in Ottawa, a swing riding. Rechi Valdez in Mississauga-Streetsville, promoted to cabinet. Why? Protect her from losing to Conservatives. And Arif Virani, promoted to Justice Minister after never being in cabinet. He's in Parkdale High Park, a very core Toronto riding. He could lose to the NDP. He got promoted to cabinet. This is about defense. This is about saying we need to do something to make sure that we don't lose everyone in the next election. I'm not sure that it's going to work, but stranger things have happened in politics. Oh, by the way, Jagmeet Singh out on Twitter critiquing the cabinet shuffle is doing nothing to help Canadians. If only there was something he could do to change the government.
Yeah, well, it's always a fascinating and intriguing time when it comes to federal politics. Log on to Facebook and Twitter. Let us know what you think, and go to thetorontosun.com. Hit that subscribe button. You're going to find analysis on the cabinet shuffle and coverage you will not find anywhere else.